My scream echoed through the tower, sharp and raw, as the figure came fully into view. It was hunched and broad, its tattered robes dragging along the ground, stained with what looked like soot and ash. Its head... Gods! Its head! It wasn't the head of a man, or even an elf. It jutted forward from a hunched neck, sagging beneath its own weight. Feathers, black with soot and age, caught the faint fungal glow, while 2 eyes glimmered on either side of the skull. A jagged beak curved outward like a scythe, bowing as if burdened by its own weight. What? Beyond the veil, I started, clutching my chest with one hand, the other reaching for my katana. Dilara's hand shot out, grabbing my arm before I could unsheath it. Don't. The creature stepped closer, dragging 2 long, heavy wings behind it. In one clawed hand, it gripped a staff of gnarled wood, its tip adorned with the moss-covered skull of a stag. Its voice rumbled out, deep and creaking, as though it hadn't been used in centuries.
Who approaches the caretaker of the dormant hollow?
The words resonated in the air, sinking into the gloom as though they carried weight. I stared, unable to force a single word past my lips. Good thing Dilara was there. She stepped forward and offered the creature a courteous bow. I am Warden Dilara, and this is the wielder-to-be, Emilia Varlavenhukel. Sench Echentchezh, we are honored to stand before you. So this was who we'd come to see. I was gobsmacked. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined something like this. Sench made a sound deep in his throat, a soft, guttural click that sent shivers racing down my spine. His massive head tilted toward Dilara, the glossy black feathers catching flickers of fungal light from above.
Warden Dilara,
he said slowly, his voice like a rusty chain creaking up from a well.
Thee I recall. Yes, thou came here before years ago, accompanying thy sister. But Emilia?
His head turned toward me. I flinched as his eyes locked onto mine, studying me with an intensity that felt like a knife scraping across bone.
Thy name I had not heard here now. Now I have, and now I shan't forget it. Wielder-to-be, thou sayest? Intriguing. Perhaps the High Priestess hath finally acknowledged that even she one day shall perish, her tissues dissolve, her flesh become sustenance for the children of soil.
His words turned my stomach, though I couldn't quite tell why. Maybe it was the way he said it, like he wasn't talking about a person but a pile of rotting leaves. Emilia is here because she's having strange dreams. We seek your guidance. Can you help her? Sench clicked his beak, tilting his head unnaturally far to one side as he regarded her.
Strange dreams, thou sayest?
Yes. She keeps hearing a voice, one that tells her something bad. She needs to learn there is nothing to it. Can you please help her divine the true meaning of those dreams?
Divine their meaning? Nay, such folly. What thou dost call dreams are but faint whispers of the nether-gaze. Yet thou speakest as though their meaning could be plucked forth, as one plucks fruit from a bough. Dreams are not riddles to be solved. Pah! To understand even a fragment of one's dreams One must trace the roots that tether the dream to the nether gaze itself. Nothing less. It is no act of divination. It is immersion. It is to sink into a vantage point from whence one might glimpse beyond by surrendering oneself to the many.
The many? I whispered, before I could stop myself.
The many,
He repeated, and caught my gaze, his feathers rustling as he stirred. A sound like wet leaves.
They are the multitude of wheels that weave their ever-shifting Gaia Nihela. Thou may know it as the undergrowth, for that is the name given to it by the demoralists in these parts of the world. Their vision of Gaia Nihela is juvenile, naive yet far from the worst. It is thy kind, little nestling, whose vision of the world is the poorest. The men of the Empire of the Morning Star. They think of the currents of flesh and soil as straightforward, cohesive, foreseeable. They look upon the earth and see a stagnant world inhabited by the animated spirit of man. But thus it is not. To those who know how to descend beneath the floor of their dreams, the gaze showeth the true face of Gaia, twisting, flowing, warping, chaos and harmony entwined. However, one cannot divine Gaia, but through the gaze, one may attempt to observe its shifting tethers and wounds, and hope to return with smidgens of understanding.
I blinked. What the hell was he on about? Here I'd been thinking that Azura was one to talk in riddles. Suddenly, her lectures on understanding the way of the Erden seemed as simple as instructions for boiling water. Not that I'd ever had to boil water myself. I scratched my neck, uncertain how to respond. Thankfully, Delara knew how to keep it simple.
Can you help her to understand her dreams?
She asked. Echentchezh turned to her, the jagged edges of his beak glinting faintly in the dim light.
Aye, Warden. I can dream alongside the little nestling, if she is willing. In which case, I shall bind her slumbering cerebrum to mine, and guide her to the nether gaze. She cannot tread there alone, for none but a druid of twilight may enter its domain unaided. But with my cerebrum tethered to hers, she shall not falter.
I leaned over to Delara, my voice a whisper. What is he saying, exactly?
He's saying that you will dream together, I think. You will dream, and he will guide you. After that, he can tell you about your dreams, what they mean.
A sigh came from the druid.
Oh, once again, thou dost misinterpret me, young warden. It is typical. None of thy kind hath ever been able to grasp the intricate nature of what I do. But it matters not.
He paused, turning to me.
Before we continue, little nestling, I require something from thee.
My heart skipped a beat, recalling the last time someone wanted a sacrifice from me as part of a pact. I already lost one eye, I said, clenching my fists. I'm not giving you my other. Echentchezh stirred and let out a low, rumbling hum.
Fret not, little nestling. I seek neither thy flesh, nor thy blood, nor thy waking vision. Nay, such barbarism hath no place in the dormant hollow. What I desire is far simpler. What I seek is a promise.
A promise? Delara interrupted, her voice surprisingly sharp. Echentchez's head snapped toward her with a speed that made my heart skip.
Thy presence is no longer required, Warden. Leave us. I must speak with the wielder to be alone.
Delara's gaze darted to me, as though to check if I was afraid. I was.
I mean her no harm,
Echentchez said, his voice almost soothing now, though there was an edge to it that made my stomach knot.
No harm, and no bargains that are not hers alone to consider. Thou hast my word, and thou mayst return in due course.
Delara hesitated. I touched her arm slightly. It's okay. Her eyes lingered, but eventually she nodded.
I won't go far,
she promised. I gave a stiff nod. Then she turned and left, and I watched her as she faded into the darkness. The silence that followed was suffocating. Slowly I turned back towards the druid. Gods, how small I felt in his presence. What kind of promise must I make? Echentchez stepped closer, wings dragging behind him as his eyes bored deeper into mine. I could feel the weight of him, the ancientness of him, pressing down on me.
First, prithee answer me this. Is it true? Hath Azura truly appointed you to be her successor upon her demise?
She wants me to be, I said, shrugging my shoulders. At least, so she says, but I haven't agreed to it yet.
Nay?
I still have 4 months to decide.
And what wilt thou choose?
I will decline it, I said, but there was a hesitation in my voice I hadn't anticipated. Echentchez's head tilted slightly, an added weight settling over him. Something about it told me he was disappointed in my answer.
Is that so? Art thou certain?
Yes, I think so. I mean, of course I am certain. I don't belong here. The words came out by themselves. As soon as I'd said them, I could hear how hollow they were, as though there was no substance to them, and Echentchez seemed to notice.
We shall see,
he said.
Either way, if thou desirest my help in comprehending the nature of thy dreams, thou must offer me thy word. If thou, against thy current inclination, dost one day become my priestess of the Forbidden Temple, swear this.
I held my breath.
Swear that thou shalt renounce the godhood of the Erden and of the other abyssal ones.
What? Of all things I'd imagined he might want, this was the last. You want me to say that the Erden aren't gods? Why? I mean, why would you want that? Echentchez took a heavy step forward.
I have seen them, their boundless forms. I have passed beyond the veil into realms of unmaking, where lands writhe and rend themselves apart. I have spoken to the abyssal ones. I have knelt before their thrones, not in reverence, but in terror, and I have returned.
My eye widened. You've been beyond the veil.
Aye, little nestling, that I have.
And you've met them. Have you met the Raven Doral?
I have.
And still you don't believe in them? Echentchezh leaned back, the clicking sounds in his throat growing louder.
I acknowledge their existence. It does not make them gods. They are powerful, yes, old beyond measure. They move through realms where few may follow, and their wills bear weight in Gaia Nihila. But divine?
He shook his head. I stared at him, struggling to process what he was saying.
Thou dost appear disconcerted, little nestling. This is common. The notion of a world without divinity is bewildering to most.
Of course there are gods, I objected. The 7. They made the world. Or, I suppose the world took shape during the War of Dawn.
Those are two very different myths. The former, I wager, thou hast been told by the priests of the Imperial Church. The 7 Laumea, children of Noena, makers of the world. They are not gods.
I blinked, taken aback. How could he even entertain such a wild notion? For a breath I considered to challenge him. But truth be told, I was too curious to hear where he was going with this. So I bit my tongue.
The latter myth thou mentioned is kept alive by the high priestesses of the Veiled Council here in Local Alesh. According to Azura and her ilk, the world was made from pain. Valleys and rivers are to them naught but the wounds suffered in that ancient strife thou mentioned. 2 myths, 2 among countless, and neither tells the truth.
So what is the truth? Is this Gaia your god?
Nay, Gaia Nihila is no deity, no more than the Demora or the Laumea. Gaia is the emergent result of countless wills that weave the rhizomatic webbings of constant becoming in this world. Nothing is divine. It is all flesh and bone, root and stone, not eternal, not holy. It is the many. It is Gaia Nihila.
I stared at him, blinking. Saying that I felt discombobulated would have been the grossest understatement of the Third Age. Why does it matter? I asked.
Pray clarify what thou art asking.
Why does it matter whether the Abyssal Ones are seen as gods or not? What would it change if I became High Priestess and renounced the godhood of the Erden?
It mattereth what names name names. It mattereth what stories we use to tell other stories. It mattereth what worlds. But let us speak plainly. When mortals grovel before powers they deem above the rest of the world, they do not merely sacrifice their freedom, they sacrifice their truth. Every law, every war, every betrayal becometh sanctified, justified as the will of the gods, whilst true intentions remain obscure. Even unto the mortals themselves, threads fray and blood flow, and that blood doth not stain merely man or elven kind.
He paused, his beak clicking faintly, the sound sharp and hollow.
The Age of Ash. The Ash Elves revere it as the beginning of their dominion. A new era, long ago. But for those who lived in this land ere the fire, it was no beginning. It was an end. A death unseen by Azure's ancestors, but felt by all the creatures of the earth, all the roots and fungi that burned to cinders in the fires of the earthen. Innocent lives, countless and voiceless, swept away to quench the wrath of Uldan the Witch King and his terrible breakers of chains.
The crowman's eyes gleamed, cold and distant, as he leaned closer.
My own kind, the Morga, were lucky. Some escaped the flames and fled south, into the wilds of no man's land, where the forests yet breathe and the whispers of Avrami yet stir. But not all living things in local Alesh were so fortunate. The roots, the trees, the soil, the beasts, they were not spared. With the exceptions of some hidden places, such as Valeswood, all was destroyed, never to regrow. The ash wastes have lain rotten and lifeless since, choked in ash.
His voice deepened further, a hollow resonance like wind passing through a cavern.
Pain and destruction play their parts in nature, I shan't deny it. But this world of ours, it hath no balance. And without balance, what remaineth is despair. The task is clear, little nestling. The reins of society must return to the hands of those who actually shape it. Not the Demora, not the Lamea, but you.
Me?
Nay, not thou. All of you. But should thou become my priestess, little nestling, a good first step would be to tell my adopted underlings this. You must take responsibility for what you do in this world, not turn away to false gods for empty comfort.
He straightened, his towering form casting a shadow that seemed to stretch toward me.
Promise me this. Promise that thou shalt renounce the godhood of the earthen, and I shall help thee understand thy dreams.
I hesitated. It should have been easy. I wasn't going to accept the role as High Priestess anyway. I'd already decided. Hadn't I? And yet, the words wouldn't come. Because... What if I did accept Azura's offer? The thought startled me, and my body nearly recoiled. For months I'd been so sure I'd refuse, so sure I'd leave this temple and all its madness behind. But now, standing here, the certainty I'd clung to felt thin. I looked back at Echentchezh. Would I really want this promise hanging over me? Would I truly want to renounce the gods of this place? My thoughts swirled, tangling tighter with every second. Echentchezh watched, unblinking, patient but heavy. I couldn't stall any longer. If I refused, he wouldn't help me. I needed his help. I needed answers. I promise, I said finally, the words trembling as they left my lips. Echentchezh tilted his head, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of approval in his eyes. Or maybe it was just the dim fungal glow above, playing tricks on me.
So be it. We shall begin.